Hi everyone, this is Eric from Traders Helping Traders with this week's Tricks of the Trade. You know, trading doesn't have to be difficult. I think it's human nature that we tend to try to make things more complicated than they need to be, and trading is certainly no exception. There are a myriad of various indicators and ways of analyzing a market when in actual fact all you really need to do is pay attention to price action. Now, to that end, one of my favorite tools for watching price action is the humble trend line. Trend lines are very simple. They're very powerful tools because there are so many trend traders in the market. Here is the Swiss franc, and this occurred a couple of months ago. We actually took part in this particular trade, and it was largely a result of the market testing and retesting this trend line. And every time it found the trend line, it would show us support. Remember, support is our red-green bar combination, and that gave us a buy signal. Now, the thing about drawing trend lines that most traders neglect is that there are actually two trend lines you can draw. You can draw the bullish or bearish trend line, which tends to go under a rising market or above a declining market. That's the traditional trend line. But then there's also what we call, or what I call, the other trend line. And the other trend line closely mimics the primary trend line. This is something that I go over in the Support and Resistance Trading Manual. So if you're unfamiliar with that, you can certainly check it out there. Generally speaking, I try to find trend lines that run parallel to each other. Now, they don't always run parallel. Sometimes the market will be making a consolidation, in which case it will be wedging up or expanding. So making either a wedging triangle or an expanding triangle. But that's something for another lesson. In this lesson, I want to focus on what happens with the other trend line. So because the other trend line can actually give you very important clues about what the market is going to do next. So here we have the Swiss franc. We actually put in an order to buy. The market went higher, hit the other trend line, and now we would expect it to come back down. But what actually happened is, and fortunately for us, this turned out to be a very profitable trade, but the market exploded through the other trend line. Now, the fact that it actually blew past the other trend line, the reasons behind it are not important. But the fact that the market did overshoot the other trend line is a very significant clue that the market might be running out of steam. We don't always see pronounced moves like we did here in the Swiss franc. Sometimes it will be a more subtle overshoot, but it is always an obvious overshoot. It's not that the market just pokes through by a tick or two, but that it really overruns the other trend line. What that tells us is that the trend is no longer in force, that some market characteristic has taken place to throw everything severely out of balance. Now, when the market becomes this volatile and out of balance, it's very likely that you will see a volatile reaction the other direction. So if you ever see a market break the other trend line, like we see here in the Swiss franc, even though it may not be this pronounced, you can actually get ready for a possible and probable reversal. So let's take a look what happens as we play this forward. You can see that the Swiss franc came down ever so briefly and actually ended up testing the trend line just a little bit here, even suggesting that it might resume the trend line. But knowing that we had this overshoot, we could be suspicious about it. And sure enough, we had a very dramatic decline. Now, I wasn't expecting a decline this fast, obviously. If I was, we would have sold it sooner than what we did. But the fact is, the overshoot of the other trend line gave us a very good indication that the trend was in trouble and that we might actually see it reverse on itself in spite of the strength on this rally here. Now this will happen time and again in all time frames. It will happen on daily charts, it will happen on weekly and monthly charts, it will even happen intraday. So it's a great little tool to add to your arsenal. Just keep an eye on the other trend line. And of course keep an eye on what's happening with the primary trend line too. But when you see the market overrun the other trend line, you might want to get ready for a probable reversal. And that's this week's Tricks of the Trade.